Hey Rudy, just want to say I love the channel. So my elevator pitch message that I put attached to this video is, what if Pioneer was actually a bailout and not so much insider trading? Well, probably still some insider trading, but what if we look at it from a bailout perspective? Okay, so we all know back in the 2008 recession, everything's crashing. The auto industry and a bunch of other things were like, we're too big to fail. So they had to turn to the American government and ask for cash to help them out. So here we have a market where everybody stopped buying into reserveless cards. Everybody started buying into current sealed product. We have MTG Arena as being pushed as the new flashy best thing to have. And what do we have in the last couple of years since Arena came out? MTGO has been crashing. Like, I know me and a few other people, we all just like left MTGO. There was a big exodus from MTGO to either invest in old stuff. You know, I took all my stuff and I threw it into my commander decks. And I pimped those out. I got them all nice, big, powerful. Sold my online collection. Currently, there was no gaming stores. One of my favorite ones crashed during the time period that we were talking about. A little bit before Arena, favorite gaming store goes out of business during the big gaming store crashes, and I've only got my cube and my commander decks to play with my buddies. So I'm like, ugh. Arena's coming out. Moto's not gonna. Nobody's gonna play Moto. Nobody's gonna want to spend money on Moto. I'll sell my collection and get rid of it. Now we have this whole thing of everybody's playing Arena. Card shops are starting to get these whole cool, swanky collector sets and everything, and everybody's buying up product. But you probably got somebody at Hasbro going, this MTGO is not making enough money. How can we try to make more money for MTGO? Well, why don't we make a format that takes all the cards that are currently on MTGO that aren't being used, and we actually make them worth money? And then we tell a bunch of our... Now, still, that crazy conspiracy theory about the insider trading, you tell some of these stores, hey, listen, these cards are going to go up in value, but at the same time, the local gaming store who's not really keeping track of all this stuff and, you know, doesn't have the TCG player to get bought out and everything like that, they turn around, wake up after Pioneer gets announced, the same thing that everybody on that's got MTGO collections of just cards are like, it's not worth it. I'm not going to just sell all my rare stuff and keep all my cheap stuff. Everybody's collections has got collections during this time period for Pioneer. They suddenly wake up and they're flush with cash because now all these cards are worth money. Everybody wants them. So I'm wondering what you think of Pioneer format, the rising prices of the secondary market for that time period of Return to Ravnica Forward, which is when a lot of the new, mom and pop gaming shops that are currently around nowadays, they all kind of started around that time because there's a big influx of players. I know I started Fens Den Gaming right as RTR was being spoiled when I actually had to shut down my shop. So this whole period, people are like, oh, we're going to open up shops, we're going to have fun, and then crash. And some of them kept through. A lot of players just kind of like put their collections aside. Everybody that held on to cards from that time period, they've got cash now. So we see this growth kind of like in this imaginary money that just got injected into that part of the card market. I'm just wondering, could it have been designed as a bailout, as a way to try to get renewed people into MTGO, help out a lot of the mom and pop shops, raise the prices of cards on the secondary market, and just have more of a boom of Magic? Because now all these shops that had these cards are able to turn around and sell them, which means they have more money to turn around to their distributors and be like, yeah, okay, this set's selling really good right now. Yeah, give me a couple more cases. Kind of like a trickle up economics. Like you inject a bunch of cash down at the bottom, like the stimulus checks, and everybody got like $100 from the government. Here, go spend money. Go spend this money so you can turn around and buy more Magic cards, buy more sealed product. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. But I also have the whole thing of like I'm talking about, this rotting cardboard thing. RTR cards, RTR forward cards, if they weren't standard legal, they were just rotting cardboard. People had stacks of them. I mean, when the new gaming store opened up in town, that was a big chunk of my bulk of commons and uncommons that I unloaded to them. I boxed up and sold to the shop, I believe, 22,000 cards, made $100 because it was just huge mass amounts of cardboard taking up space here in the nerd bunker. But also there's a whole thing of like, I'm not the only one with rotting cardboard. You have people that bought dual decks. You have people that bought the event decks for the past couple of years. You have the challenger decks, the two-player that came out in Cons of Tarkir time, where you bought 2 decks, but if you actually scrapped them and put them together, you would actually be able to, and you bought 4 of them, you could actually make one standard deck that was actually on par, like win F&M, go to a PTQ grinder style deck. So yeah, this rotting cardboard, new format, makes everything worth cash, makes people dive into their bulk to be able to sell off and get money, which they can just turn around and buy more Magic cards. Which is the whole thing of what Wizards wants people to do, is buy more Magic cards. Which, so we got Pioneer. And my whole thing is, they're thinking about making people buy more stuff, making people be more confident, more willing to put money in places. And it's making me think about what happened with Modern. Because Modern did the same thing. Because we had Extended was nerfed. It was cut down from the past 8 Octobers to the past 2 Octobers. Standard. Past 4 Octobers. So you cut Extended down. You cut Extended in half. And go, oh, here's new Extended. Everybody hated the format. Because it's a lot like how Pioneer is right now. It's just like the past couple of years worth of really abusive, ban-worthy decks ended up eating up the format. Nobody liked it. They're like, okay, well, let's do Modern. And bam, we're going to go back. It's going to start where old Extended started and go forward. And everybody's like, oh yeah, let's play Modern, let's play Modern. Wide open card pool, huge banned list. Stuff is nerfed. Everything's fine. Fast forward. Now, Modern is just the same as Legacy. There's not a huge difference between the Legacy card pool and the Modern card pool, except for a few cards. They're still able, new sets, new Modern Horizon style sets, new Master style sets. They can reprint them. We don't have dual decks anymore, but Commander decks. There's ways to reprint that stuff. It's not reserve list, and a big chunk of the card pool for Legacy is you have to have bought into reserve list, and reserve list keeps going up because reserve list, they're never going to reprint the stuff. New players don't come in, and I think they realize this. Like, new players, they play Standard, they get fed up because, I can't play Modern because all my decks are really horrible because I don't have the money to be able to spend. I wasn't playing back then. Which is the whole spiel they have for Pioneer, is the whole fact of like all your old cards that you've been collecting during the time that the lifespan of a player being so short. I'm a rare case. I started in Ice Age, but a lot of new players, they're like, well, I can't play Modern, and they don't want to play Modern because they play against people like me that plays Gift Storms, and I 3-0 every single Modern tournament we have at the local shop now. And I get fed up, and they don't show up for Modern night. So, and Legacy's only really being kept alive by Star City Games because they've got the card pool and they're selling it. And everybody's been talking about Legacy, about like, we need to change the Legacy. We need a non-reserve list Legacy. And this is where I'm going off in the deep end, so a lot of people can just tune out now or just start ranting and raving in the comment section. But I think we need to have Modern actually be, hey, look, if it's printed in the new Modern card frame, it's Modern legal. Take Modern, take all the Master sets, everything that was printed in a Master set, dual deck, especially set like the Conspiracy sets, Battle Bond, Commander decks, everything with a new Modern card frame, Modern legal. An announcement like that, possibly once everybody's had some time to adjust to Pioneer and Pioneer has started to be established. I'm looking at, this is where I'm personally off in my deep end, but I'm looking at like tax return season when everybody's got that tax return cash. if they could go and say, okay, Modern is getting nerfed, Modern's getting changed, these decks are now these cards are now legal. There was a bunch of reprints of these cards in some old dual decks and some old master sets. You'll see stuff like, Imperial Recruiter, Goblin Welder, all like the really powerful cards. They've been reprinted, but they haven't really gone up to the value they were before then. We'll go right back up to that value. Legacy, getting the put out to pasture and saying, hey, look, we're not going to have Legacy. Legacy is no longer a sustainable format. It's gotten too big. Nobody can buy into it anymore, and we're going to retire it. We're going to say, just lump it together and just call it all vintage and move forward. I think it's going to be it would be a great move. Modern is getting way too powerful of a card pool. I've been saying for years that it's like, if only Force of Will and Days were legal and we could have that style level power of control, and we could get some of the more really good spicy combo stuff that's gotten reprinted to give the combo decks more power, and just let Modern be on the power level of Legacy. Move Legacy away. You'll see even that format grow. Because everybody will be like, oh, what? This new deck is open? We can play this again? Oh. And people will buy this stuff up from the secondary market. The people who have shops in the secondary market will be able to have big economic stimulus. They'll spend more money on sealed product. They'll be able to buy more stuff. Everybody spends more money. And I think that's what Wizards is going to go for. They want to make money. They make money by people buying sealed product. And if you have formats that are set up so that way the sealed product finds a home and you can reprint, and you don't have to worry about the reserve list. You can leave the reserve list the way it is and just keep reprinting cool stuff and be like, ooh, what was a really great Legacy deck that Modern really needs? Ooh, let's print it as a mythic rare and sell this product. Instead of just getting us stuff that's like, oh yeah, everybody, that card's not really worth all that much because it's not on the reserve list. Yeah, some people might be like, oh yeah, I was lucky, I cracked one, I ended up selling it and I bought some standard stuff. But I think you would have more people being like, well, yeah, I can play Modern. People are like, oh, that's why I think the Modern specialty sets actually do good. It's because everybody's like, oh, get this. If I'm lucky, I can crack some cards and then I can get some other stuff and I can finally build Modern. Or the prices are like, when they dip before they spike back up, people can buy into Modern. And people can't really buy into Legacy without having to go out and pay like almost $400 for one duel. It's a little bit too pricey. So I really think that if they're going to keep doing this whole thing where Wizards is going to keep printing cards to be able to affect the formats, they want to have all of the big competitive formats all be ones that they can easily manipulate. They can't easily manipulate Legacy. They can easily manipulate Modern with reprints. They can easily manipulate Pioneer with reprints. Standard is always planned obsolescence. There's always going to be a standard set that goes away. Standard sets that go away, new standard sets. People are always going to be constantly doing that. People are always going to want to draft. Those format, but they need to have Modern so they can have more of an effect on it. And printing chase mythics that completely break formats is not going to be sustainable. Printing chase cards that allow you to build established decks, yes, I think that is much more sustainable than the chase cards, because the chase cards constantly keep getting banned. We're talking about banning. The internet's talking about banning Oko right now because Oko is warping the format. You know what Oko does too? You know what a turn 1 Gilded Goose, turn 2 Oko, you know what makes somebody look really stupid when you do that? Force of Will, Days. And yes, it's going to make blue more powerful, but seriously, blue is the power set. But then you get all the cards that are Modern legal and Pioneer legal that all have that nice little line that says, this spell can't be countered. Those cards go up in value. And then the shops that sell those are like, we got more money. Let's buy more sealed product. This makes sense as an economic package of stimulating the secondary market to make everybody's cards worth more. So that way the secondary market is more fluid and moving, and people aren't just buying sealed product and stashing it away, where the cards just sit and wait for a price spike. So the 4 formats, I think that we're going to see as being the 4 constructed formats that Wizards is actually going to want to care about and want to have as being the 4 that everyone's playing. It's going to be standard, and that's all flavors of standard. That means like Brawl as well, because Brawl is basically standard Commander, but I lump it in. So we're going to have standard, we're going to have Pioneer, we're going to have Modern, and we're going to have Commander. Because everybody, seriously, Commander, it's one of the best casual formats ever. You only have to own 1 copy of a card. And when there's a cool new legendary that Wizards gets to be like, hey, check out this cool new legendary. And then like all the old cards that go up the value around it and everybody's selling them. Then they'll be like, yeah, let's get some more of those Commander precons. The formats that I don't think Wizards cares about at all, the ones they can't manipulate easy are, like I said, Legacy. Vintage they can't manipulate. They can manipulate by printing a few cards, but a lot of the cards that end up becoming spicy in Legacy, they're only like $4, $10 cards. They're not huge hitters. They're not big market movers. It's like 1 card maybe out of a set that ends up being like, oh yeah, we can play this in Vintage. And then, but unless you're playing on Moto, which honestly nobody really had a lot of confidence in, I don't think. A lot of people play Moto without Pioneer, without having huge numbers of people spending money into it. You just got a few people sitting around playing Vintage, which is like every Vintage tournament you ever see. It's just a bunch of old guys sitting around being like, I've been playing this thing since the dawn of time. I got all these cards for cheap. And it really, Vintage is not, it's not even on the radar. Vintage is a player-centered format. The same with Legacy. If you're a Legacy player, you're a Legacy player. You either bought in when it was cheap, you either have the disposable income to buy into it, you probably have a Legacy deck. I have Legacy Dredge. It's been my Legacy deck forever. I never change it. I just keep updating it every once in a while. But I can go and buy those for like $20 on the secondary market, and I'm not going out and I'm not cracking boxes for chase stuff to put into a Dredge deck. I'm just picking up here, there, getting some off of trades. Maybe, if somebody cracks one in a draft and I'm like, hey man, I need that card. Can I get it off you? I mean, I'm like on the tertiary market when it comes to picking up Vintage staples or Legacy staples for Dredge. The last format I think Wizards doesn't care about is Cube. Because honestly, Cube staples, it ends up basically being like, there's no way to ever print a cube-centered set. Wizards cannot affect it because everybody's going to build their cubes based on their own personal preference. Cube is going to be the one format they never are able to fully manipulate, because you can have people that are like, well, I loved Ravnica, so they have a Ravnica cube. It's all cards from Ravnica. You have some players who are like, well, I've been playing since forever, and I got I got a set of Power 9. I hate just having it just sitting somewhere. So I got it in my cube. And then you got people who are just like, I'll copy the online cube and I'll have a real version so me and my friends can test with it. And, personally, mine is a conspiracy cube. I love the conspiracy sets. There's a lot of conspiracy. There's a lot of the cards that end up making tokens that actually have other Magic card names, like Kobolds Get Their Keep and the Spell Shapers. So my cube is a lot like that. It also has some of my favorite mechanics, such as, of course, again, voting. It's got some I got one deck that actually got upgraded from cube to commander. Was my Here Have This deck. It was basically red, white, blue. It's red, white, blue get through. It's not get through. It's the Great Heart. Can never pronounce his first name. Anyways, it's basically a collection of backdraft of the Strictly Versus Cube's greatest hits of red, white, blue, and colorless. But it ends up being you can't affect Cube. You can't affect people and make their Cube builders go out and buy new cards. You can't really unseat somebody from being set in and locked into a Legacy or a Vintage deck. Modern, you got some more people that are a little bit more fluid, but not a lot. Pioneer right now is wide open. People can play whatever they had for stuff lying around, be able to trade off some of the other stuff, get new stuff, possibly even if they were looking at some other decks in different formats, and they've got a bunch of stuff that actually just spiked huge. It was just floating around in a bulk bin, now's the time that they can be into these formats. Wizards can affect them, and yeah, that's my rant. And I just wanted to put this up here and get your ideas and let you know what I'm thinking. See if you're interested in making a response to this or talking about this topic, or if anyone wants to chime into the comment sections below and talk about looking at Pioneer as a bailout for LGSs, for the secondary market, for MTGO. Put those comments down below. Rudy, I hope if you're actually still listening to this by this point that you'll do a response video. I'd love to see you with a whiteboard talking about all of this. If not, just maybe give me a reshare if you thought this was actually interesting, that people should be talking about this topic. If you don't have time to talk about it yourself. And for everyone else, hit that like and button down below, because if you like hearing me talk about this, maybe I'll get back in front of the camera if enough people say, hey, get in front of the camera, Fen. But I'm rambling. I don't want this to turn into one of Fen's rambling monologues, so I'm going to shut up, say goodbye, and peace.